Good evening, all. It's Tuesday, December 5th, 2023, 7 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilman Jekyll.
Here.
Councilman Lesko here.
Here.
Councilman Schultz.
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
Councilman Becker is excused absence.
Item 3, public hearings. Tonight we have none. Item 4, public comment. The city will receive comments from city residents, then they're generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for information. No action will be. State the following items for information. Name, address, subject matter, contact information. No action will be taken on any public comment unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. Note, if you're on Zoom and hybrid meeting, you will get an opportunity to speak. You need to stay muted until you're called upon. When your time is there, please hold up your virtual hand and we will call on you to speak. First, tonight we have John Donahue.
Good evening. My name is John Donahue, residing at 1550 Ravine Street, Fort Atkinson. My comments tonight may be regarded as a summary of matters brought before the City Council during recent months, a year in review, so to speak, matters left unfinished. On May 4th, 2023, I addressed a financial transparency issue with the city in the form of a request. I asked that when city departments come before City Council for approval of expenditures, the department should report 2 things as part of their presentation and requests. First, to identify exactly where in our city budget by fund number and line item the proposed expenditures appear in our budget. And second, although this was not an explicit part of my request at that time, to include as part of the department's expenditure request on which this council would be voting, how the department's request correlates with the city's comprehensive plan. These 2 initiatives, if enacted, will help all of us to better understand how these expenditures are tied directly to the city's annual budget and its business plan. Generally, these expenditure requests have already been approved by virtue of an overall budget being ratified each year. But a crosswalk between City Council voting on expenditures and the published budget is not always clear. So let's make it clear. This request, if enacted, has no cost to the taxpayers. For example, tonight we take up votes on 3 debt instruments and equipment expenditures totaling $51,676.50. So it would be very useful to explicitly tie these back to where in the city budget these items would appear. On July 18th of this year, I asked the City Council request that the Library Board add community and personal health information to the library's LGBTQ+ book display, which would address adverse public and personal health risks associated with LGBTQ+ behaviors explicitly described in those books. And as of today, this has not been done. No public or personal health information is offered by that display. This too is a request that has no cost to the taxpayers. Also on July 18th, I asked that the City Council establish a community-based citizens group to recommend a community standards framework under the auspices of Wisconsin Statute Chapter 944, and to report back to this council with its findings, which would be a recommended community standards framework or a recommendation not to have any framework. This has not been done.
So your 3 minutes have expired.
Thank you.
Does anyone on Zoom wish to have public comment? Second call for anyone on Zoom to have public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Public comment is closed. Item 5, a consent agenda. The consent agenda is outlined and available online if you wish to see it. It is hereby presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president. Review and possible action. Would be looking for a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed, items 5A through 5E.
Second.
Item 6,
Oh, do we need to vote?
the motion carries.
They actually need to vote.
Pardon?
They actually need to vote.
All right,
Motion is-
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. Presentations relating to Fort Atkinson's 2024 proposed borrowing structure, purpose, and timeline. Mr. Justin Fisher.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's good to see everyone here tonight. So I handed out a packet that we'll run through tonight. And it's really a culmination of working with Rebecca and Michelle and the team over the last several years to come up with this plan. So pretty excited to go through it and share what we've come up with. So why don't we jump in with the first page here? There's 3 different borrowings that are going to take place in 2024. 2 of them are shorter term construction notes and the third one being a longer term financing. So we'll go through from the left side to the right side of the page. The first one being a note anticipation note for the amount of $20,455,000. It's a kind of combination here of different CIP related projects. That's the normal type capital borrowing that Rebecca and Michelle have worked really hard to kind of figure out what's going to be needed to fund over the next 2 years. In addition to that, it has the public works facility that you guys have been evaluating for a long time now in the amount of $18 million. So when you take all the different pieces, that's how you get up to the $20,455,000. It's going to mature December 1 of 2024. First interest being December 1 and callable June 1 of 24 or any date thereafter. The estimated rate 5%, max parameter 5.75%. Fortunately, what we've seen over the last month, specifically of the last month, is that interest rates are coming down, which is great news. Finally, I think the consensus here in the marketplace is that we may actually start seeing some rate cuts come next year, and so that's kind of signaled the finishing of rate hikes, which again is welcome news in the marketplace. And so we're really going to be watching that closely as we kind of go throughout 2024 to try to get in at the optimal time. So the second series is a short-term construction note. It's going to be a 3-year type financing. And this is going to be specifically related to tax increment district number 9 for the infrastructure related to that. And the strategy there is tax increment district number 9 doesn't have the tax revenues currently to be able to pay any of the debt service for that. So what we're doing is putting capitalized interest in there for a period of time until there starts generating enough tax increment revenue to be able to take that out into longer term financing. Once we know the cash flows of that tax increment district, revenue, that's how we're going to be able to match up the longer term financing at that particular time. So we don't want to take a long term financing out right now without knowing where the cash flows, what the cash flows look like. So we'll go through all those details on the next couple of pages here. And then the general obligation refunding bond. So again, doing one long-term issue, the same strategy we've used in the past here, refinancing the shorter-term construction note. And again, the reason you're doing that is because you could issue two long-term issues, one for the CIP and one for the public works facility. But some of those CIP projects cannot be issued for longer than 10 years. So by issuing one short-term construction note, you can refinance it at a later point into one longer term, and then internally break it up to have it amortize over 10 years, and then the public works over a 20-year, but you're only having one long-term debt issue outstanding. It's also more marketable when we go out to the market versus having two issues and one being very small and one a little bit larger. So that's the strategy there. And, so again, what we're doing there, it's going to have a first maturity February 1 of 25 through 2044. First interest is February 1 of 2025. So again, the first payment on this debt won't be on your tax levy until 2025. So nothing this year in 24. First interest, 25, and then callable February 1, 2030, or any date thereafter. So on that particular day is when you can refinance it, pay it off, etc. It's giving you that flexibility. And again, the rate's 5% with a max of 575. Ideally, we come in much better, but as you've seen from me in the past, I like to be conservative in our planning and then hopefully come in much better when we actually go out to the market and have a bid on. So the timeline here on page 3 is the city would consider the plan of finance and parameters resolutions December today, ultimately giving the city manager or finance director the authority to sign off on the sales. The preparations are already kind of started for the no anticipation notes. And then if the market is strong and meet council's parameters, sell the notes come January, February of 2024. At that particular point, we're going to be looking to kind of go through more of the longer term issuance, which is going to entail an actual bond credit rating. The city has a bond credit rating of a AA-. You've maintained that bond credit rating. We've done a lot of analysis on that. The thought is to try to maintain that AA-. And that's where myself, Rebecca, Michelle will be on a call with Standard & Poor's going through the financials of the community, what's been going on with development, answering questions about audits and that type of stuff, and ultimately telling them why Fort Atkinson is the greatest city in the world. So then if the market is strong and meet council's parameters, that's when we would potentially enter the market late April, early May, and then close tentatively beginning of June. So that would be kind of the earliest process. Then if we go to page 4, there's going to be a lot of numbers on this page. But I'll kind of walk you through from the left side to the right side of the page. So the left side of the page, that's your existing debt service on an annual basis. So that's taking all your existing obligations and kind of layering it in year over year. That's all the levy supported. So that does not include your water, sewer, that type of debt, because that's funded by your different utilities and tax increment districts. So this is just the levy supported portion. Then what we did was in the middle of the page, you can see the 20,455,000, and that's kind of broken up into different components. One being different projects that are related to the 10-year type structure, because again, we don't want to borrow for certain projects if the useful life isn't more than 10 years. So we want to try to match the useful lives of those projects up. So we got some levy portion at 10 years. We've got the public works portion over the 20-year period because of the useful life. And then part of that project, includes the different water, wastewater, and storm portions. And you can see that breakout there in the illustration. Ultimately, what that does is when you take the existing debt service, layer in this existing obligation that we're talking about tonight, you get to the right side of the page under that combined debt service levy supported. And you can see that what the mill rate looks like today and kind of goes up to about that $1.78 in the future. And again, there's a lot of assumptions with this, growth factors, interest rates, and so forth. But this is kind of where things, play out if that. But we always take it a step further. You've seen this in the past. We layer in hypothetical future borrowings every other year going forward for forever, just to kind of model that out and get an idea of what that debt service may do to the city over a longer period of time. And that's when you look to the far right, you can see that blue shaded area where it kind of levels out at that about $2.7 million every year thereafter. So that's ultimately the kind of goal, is to get to that point. And then, if you continue to borrow around that $2 to $3 million range every other year, you will start leveling out at that $2.7 million. And that's ultimately the goal to get you there. Now, if you throw in another large project in between, well, obviously then we need to adjust. And that's why it's kind of a fluid plan here, but it's really to give you an idea of what things look like into the future. So that's the kind of the long-term capital improvement borrowing plan. And then page 5 here, if you look at that, that's strictly related to tax increment district number 9. So again, if you recall, this one was created just a little bit ago. So again, it's kind of a newer TID that, Rebecca, Michelle, and the team is doing, working really hard to try to bring in development for that particular area, And so, but that takes time. Once the development happens, you don't get tax revenue from that development for a period of time. You build it, it gets assessed, it goes on the tax roll the following year. So it's really like a 2-year lag between construction and actually collecting a tax revenue. So with that being said, we're kind of projecting you wouldn't receive tax revenues until 2026. So that's how we're structuring this, is because you don't have any revenues. We don't want you to be making any debt payments on this, because again, you don't want to put this on the tax levy, because you want the tax increment district to pay for this debt service. So structuring it to do the anticipation note for a period of time. And then once we're comfortable and we've got some projects that you can see and it's generating tax revenue at that particular point, likely in 2026-ish, that's when we'll probably look at taking out this shorter term financing into longer term financing and try to match up the cash flows to make sure that you've got enough revenues to cover that debt service. And so based on kind of what we've been projecting, that's hopefully the case. And you can see on the far right side of the page what we're kind of projecting based on different assumptions. And ultimately in 2026, the goal there is to get a nice chunk of money, kind of like a reserve, a nice surplus built up in case things happen that aren't expected. You've got a little bit of money there to be able to cover yourself for a period of time. So that's something that, the team and myself have worked on extensively over the last year. And then if we go to the final page here, I think this is a nice visual that I show you every time I come. And it's really your general obligation borrowing capacity. So municipalities are allowed to borrow up to 5% of your equalized valuation. Now, obviously, we never want you to go right up, borrow for everything. The city has a policy not to exceed 60% of your available borrowing capacity. So essentially what this bar chart is showing you here, the black bars, that's your existing obligations. So you can see that is decreasing over time as you pay down that existing debt. The blue bars there, that's the issuance that we're talking about tonight, the 20 million. And then the orange is the tax increment district number 9 debt. And then the kind of that kind of gold color is the future capital improvement borrowings every other year going forward for life, which is about that $2 to $3 million every year. So we try to factor in everything that we know that may be coming down the pipeline and factor it into this bar chart to ultimately show how much capacity would you have remaining if you were to grow 2% a year forever. Now, obviously, you've been growing a lot faster over the last couple of years, but is that sustainable? No, that's just not. So hopefully this is a conservative picture, but it still shows that you have over, 50% remaining capacity at any point during this period of time, factoring in everything that I've talked about tonight. So if you don't do a future borrowing in 2026, this bar chart will look better. So a lot of puzzle pieces here that we've been working on, but Rebecca and Michelle has done a great job. We've really been thinking a lot about this, and we're excited to see this project come to fruition.
I will also just note that in the memo in the packet, you can see the listing of all of the CIP projects and purchases that are proposed with this borrowing. As Justin mentioned, it's not just the Public Works facility, but it is that, and it is a 2-year borrowing. So we have items in 24 and 25, as well as some reimbursement of proceeds from this borrowing for purchases from 2023 that the council did approve a resolution allowing that earlier in 2023. So all that can be found in the packet as well. In addition to that, I did some projections for one of our previous meetings relating to the an estimated mill rate with this debt that we were talking about tonight. So all of that information is also in the memo.
Justin, you mentioned at the outset of your remarks that the city would try to get in the market at the optimal time. What helps us know when that optimal time is?
It's optimal time, but it's more getting the project costs more finalized and knowing that side of the equation. And then ultimately, we don't want to do the crystal ball thing, right? But ultimately, once we're in position, then it's also looking at supply in the marketplace. Is the Fed speaking? That type of stuff is more on the optimal side. That's all stuff that we're going to evaluate.
Okay, and then as you noted, the city has a more conservative tolerance for borrowing than what we could borrow for. What impact does that have on our credit rating?
It benefits you by having this type of policy in place. It's something that they absolutely pay attention to. It's something that they're going to probably note in the rating report that you receive. And it's honestly, you do abide by it. And that's the thing. Many communities have policies in place, but not all of them abide by it.
Justin, I like your chart. It shows where we are, where we should go. Some of it's a little static as long as we don't increase those on our own. But what it doesn't do is tell us how we compare to other cities. Could you give us an idea how we fit?
Yeah, I would say that many communities are at that around 50% to 60% of their capacity. So a lot of the smaller communities, on the other hand, they are, a lot of them are higher. So, because they aren't necessarily growing as fast, or, just don't have as much valuation, which is what it's based on. And so one large project for a small community could eat up a significant portion of their capacity. So I would say community your size, you're there, if not better.
Thank you.
I will also just note another item that will help our bond rating is the city's healthy general fund unassigned fund balance. That's also something that the ratings agencies look at, and we do have a policy on what our general fund balance should be, and we are within or exceeding that policy. So that's another thing that they look at.
Does council have any other debate or questions? Moving on.
Thank you.
Item 7, resolutions and ordinances. Thank you, Justin. Item A, review and possible action on a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $20,500,000 in general obligation promissory notes and authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $20,500,000 note anticipation notes series 2024A in anticipation thereof. Ms. Hausman.
As I mentioned, you have some information in your packet relating to these. These are the 3 resolutions that Justin referred to during his presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions about specific projects. Those projects are all identified in the 2024 budget, 2024 CIP and 2025 through 2029 CIP for those specific projects that are will be purchased in 2025.
Item B. No.
Take action.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed 20,500,000 general obligation promissory notes and authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 20,500,000 note anticipation notes, series 2024A in anticipation thereof.
Second.
Any further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B. Review and possible action to a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3,600,000 in general obligation promissory notes and authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters of the sale not to exceed $3,600,000 note anticipation notes, series 2024B in anticipation thereof. Ms. Hausman.
Yes, this is the second in the list of resolutions here. This is for the infrastructure relating to the Banker Road project. It will be debt service will be covered by TID number 9. I would be happy to answer any other questions.
This debt is purely funded out of TID number 9 then in the end,
Yes,
as long as everything goes to plan.
right.
I'd move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3,600,000 of general obligation promissory notes and authorize the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $3,600,000 note anticipation notes, series 2024B in anticipation thereof.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, any further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Review and possible action on a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for a sale of not to exceed $20,500,000 in general obligation refunding bonds. Ms. Hausman.
This is the third resolution. This is the refunding of that initial note anticipation note. So it is not an additional $20 million. This is refunding. This is authorizing the refunding under these specific parameters for that initial $20,500,000 in GO promissory notes, series 2024A.
This collectively, all of these items, they're a big deal. It feels a little odd not to have much discussion or debate on it, but it feels, I know that's largely a result of having thoroughly examined this over even before I came on again. And so the planning has been going out over a long time, and this is something that we've looked at for quite some time. And so while it may seem a little odd that we are approving spending for large amounts of money, it has been something that's been carefully planned for. I would move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $20,500,000 in general obligation refunding bonds.
Second.
Further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D. Second reading and possible third final reading of an ordinance annexing the territory addressed N 2696 Banker Road to the city of Fort Atkinson. Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you. So this is the applicants and property owners, Josh Majewski and Summer Majewski have requested annexation of this property from the town of Koshkonong to the city of Fort Atkinson in order to access city water and sewer infrastructure. The Plan Commission reviewed this at their meeting on November 14th and did recommend that the council approve it. The city council did perform a first reading on November 21st. On November 20th, staff received the letter from the Department of Administration indicating that the annexation is in the public interest. So there is noted in the memo, there is a deferred special assessment for water, sewer, and road infrastructure in this area. The repayment is governed by an annexation agreement that is also included in your packet. Also of note that per statutes, the city must pay the town the $2,441.30, representing the loss of town property taxes for the next 5 years. So we will issue that check upon completion of the annexation ordinance. So we are recommending that city council perform the second reading of this ordinance tonight and suspend the rules to perform the third reading, and that the city council enact the ordinance. I will note that this property is for sale and the current owners have an offer that which is why we're requesting that this be move along to the third reading tonight.
Question. So this property is on our boundary of the city boundaries. This annexes it into the city, and part of that throughout the planning commission, we understood that like their septic system had failed, and then there is utilities for them to connect to, and because of that, I think it's county state rules kind of indicate that they should, instead of putting in a new sewer system, they should just connect to the city, become part of the city. My question for that would be, and unrelated maybe to this, but how many of those types of properties exist around a tertiary area around our city?
You mean how many have access, so to speak, to water and sewer, but that are in the town? I can tell you we probably have about a dozen or 18 that have special assessments outstanding against them, deferred special assessments, meaning that they are that the city at some point, when the city did special assessments back in the late 90s and early 2000s, put in infrastructure in those locations for that property owner to take advantage of when and if septic systems failed.
Okay.
So this is one of those such cases.
Would it be fair to say, or to think that we haven't received any negative feedback on this matter since the first reading?
Correct. The property owners have requested it, so it's not any sort of, forced annexation. They issued submitted the petition to the city to annex in order to access water and sewer. We have not heard anything from anyone in the neighborhood.
I move to suspend the rules and offer a third reading of the ordinance annexing the territory addressed in 2696 Banker Road to the city of Fort Atkinson.
Second.
Further debate? We have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry, I should have been voted as an aye there too, but I was thinking it was a roll call. All right.
I move to adopt the ordinance annexing the territory addressed N 2696 Banker Road to the city of Fort Atkinson.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I'll take a roll call vote for this.
Roll
Roll call.
The roll call vote.
Councilman Jacob,
Aye.
Councilman Lesko Hair.
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I apologize for being off cue tonight. Item 8, reports of officers, boards, and committees. City managers report.
Thank you. I attended the Wisconsin City County Managers Association Women's Leadership Seminar in Green Lake last week. Topics included finance in Wisconsin local government, recruitment, organizational culture, and imposter syndrome. It was a great session. Last week, I also attended a meeting with the Jefferson County Administrator, as well as other managers, administrators, and mayors in Jefferson County to address issues that impact all communities in the county. So we do continue to meet every other month to see where we can work together and create efficiencies in our local governments here. Last week, Superintendent Williamson released the bid documents for the new Public Works and Parks Operations Facility to be located at 600 Talcott Avenue. The deadline for submittal of bids is later, I think, December 22nd. And that will give us a firmer cost over the estimate that we've been using for the borrowing. So that is an important piece of this puzzle. I want to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce on a successful holiday market and parade. It was really great to see so many people downtown during the day over the weekend, and the parade was fantastic. I want to thank city staff for who assisted in logistics and planning. We had a big role in that. Our police department did a great job with that, as well as those who participated. I'm sure people saw our K-9 unit was out and about, as well as our bike patrol unit. So that was really great to see everybody, as well as our public works staff assisted with that, and our fire department as well. On Monday, Engineer Selly released 5 requests for proposals for the design of 5 road and utility construction projects. Those include the design of grant-related projects such as the South Main Street pedestrian path and the Commonwealth Drive rehabilitation. We've talked about those before, as well as the utility design for the Riverside Drive project, which is a DOT project that will occur in likely 2027. The Banker Road infrastructure that we referenced earlier tonight with the borrowing, as well as our 2025 water main replacement project. So construction of those projects will likely occur between 2024 and 2027. So this is the design phase of those. I continue to work with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and the Department of Revenue on the implementation of Act 12. That is the law that provided supplemental shared revenue for municipalities. It also established new reporting requirements for maintenance of effort for the police departments and fire departments. The work group is reviewing draft rules from the DOR at a virtual meeting on Thursday. So I continue to be engaged in that and make sure that we are able to report that we are involved in the rulemaking for those reporting requirements. Recruitment for the fire EMS chief position continues to move forward. The Police and Fire Commission will meet again on December 13th to review current and possible additional candidates for another round of interviews. The museum had 15 houses entered into their gingerbread house contest, which is the most ever. Staff favorites include a replica Dwight Foster Public Library circa 1919 and a replica Fort Koshkanon circa 1893, I believe. The popular choice voting runs through Saturday morning with the awards for popular choice and judge's choice on Saturday, December 9th at 3 p.m. at the holiday open house at the museum. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Moving on to item 9, unfinished business. Tonight we have none. Item 10, new business. Item A, review and possible action relating to the purchase of 2 MCT 60 brooms with 2024 Parks CIP funds at a cost not to exceed $11,142.50.
Yes, thank you. The Parks and Recreation Department, we currently have 3 60-inch MCT broom attachments that are essential for clearing snow from public sidewalks and trails during the winter months, as well as for addressing debris and leaves during warmer weather. The brooms have been, they've proven to be a reliable and effective tool for staff to maintain clear and safe walkways for residents. We are requesting to replace the 2 oldest broom attachments purchased in 2015 and 2017 by securing the purchase of these brooms now and acquiring them next year in 2024. The brooms can be available for the upcoming winter season. And to be clear, no purchases will be made until 2024. In section Q of the 2024 capital improvements budget, $12,500 of levied funds was budgeted for the replacement of these 2 brooms. We contacted a few dealers in the area, and Mid-State Equipment was the cheapest at $11,142.50. So we recommend the purchase of two MCT 60 brooms from Midstate Equipment at a cost not to exceed $11,142.50 in 2024. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Move to approve the purchase of two MCT 60 brooms from Midstate Equipment at a cost not to exceed $11,142.50.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B. Review and possible action relating to the purchase of 4 Skag Turf Tiger zero turn mowers and a clamshell bagger with 2024 Parks CIP funds at a cost not to exceed $40,534.
Yes, thank you. In 2024 capital improvements budget, 4 zero-turn mowers were planned to be replaced in accordance with the regular 6-year replacement schedule that we have historically followed. In section Q of the 2024 capital improvements budget, $48,500 was budgeted for this purchase through the levy-funded CIP. Due to our staff's diligent maintenance practices and mileage management, the city was offered an exceptionally discounted price through trade-ins, enabling the replacement of all 4 mowers next year in 2024. Rock River Park relies on 2 zero-turn mowers, primarily tasked with maintaining the aquatic center and the entire 100+ acre park. The clamshell bagger plays a crucial role in preserving the clean appearance inside the aquatic center fence. The remaining 2 zero-turn mowers are responsible for the upkeep of the remaining city parks. They ensure the parks remain inviting and well-maintained for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. One significant benefit of the proposed purchase is that the Parks and Rec Department, along with the Department of Public Works and Wastewater, all utilize Skag Turf Tiger mowers. The shared equipment selection streamlines the ability to conduct maintenance, facilitate faster repairs when needed, and enhance the ability to manage a comprehensive parts inventory. So we solicited a couple pricing for the Turf Tiger 2 models. The table outlines one's from Midstate, one's from Prairie Power. Midstate proposed $58,834 for the 4 mowers with a clamshell bagger, with a $18,300 for trade-in, for a total cost of $40,534. By securing the price now, the city will avoid the price increase scheduled for the new year. And again, no purchases will be made until 2024. So staff recommends City Council authorize the purchase of 4 2024 Skag Turf Tiger 2 model 84 842D and a clamshell bagger from Midstate Equipment at a cost not to exceed $40,534 in 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions.
One question I have, Brooke, I'm assuming this might have been a typo on their end. The quote expiration date is for November for the mowers, where the brooms was for December. Do you know if?
Yeah, they had committed via email to extend that until we were able to get it approved in council.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How wide are the zero turn motors?
60.
Pardon?
They're 60 inches.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the purchase of 4 2024 Skag Turf Tiger zero-turn mowers and a clamshell bagger from Midstate Equipment at a cost not to exceed $40,534.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item C, review and possible action relating to the purchase of 1 squad car and associated equipment. Police Chief Bum.
Hello, everyone. So in the 2024 capital improvement budget for the police department, we established funds to purchase an additional squad car for the police department's fleet. With the increase of manpower this last year, it was the plan to not get rid of a squad car this next year, but still purchase one new one. So our fleet will grow by one. This was a unique learning experience for me in this capital improvement budget, as typically we see that the state, the company or dealer that gets the state contract always has the lowest price. And I've always thought in the past, why do I need to go get the second or third comparison quote? Because I know this is going to be the lowest, until this year they throw in this curveball on me. And now where it's the exact opposite of what it's always been for me. So when we went to Ewald, initially I got quotes from Ewald, who is the state contract holder, and then our local dealer of Griffin for the same exact squad car. And Ewald came back and said, I'm giving you a quote for a 2025 squad car because we don't have access to 2024 because they're all gone. I was like, oh, and that's interesting. And what we find is with Ford, they raise their price about 6% every single year on a squad car. So we anticipate paying 6% more next year about for planning. So I got that quote and it came in at the 45,668. And I thought that was really high. That's a big number. So then when I went to Griffin, I was hoping that the number would be close. And their response was, we have access to 2024 squads. We can quote a 2024, and their price was the lowest this year, which we have never seen before. So learning experience for me. We established funds within the capital improvement for this purchase. It's for the squad car, but also all the equipment that goes into it, and then the graphics on it and the costs of upfitting all of that equipment into the car. So although the purchase of the squad that I'd like to request through Griffin, $43,302, is far less than the $65,500 that we have in our capital improvement. And that's to pay for all the additional equipment that will go into that car. This is a new car in the fleet, so it needs all new equipment. We were able to bring that dollar amount down from what it was supposed to be as well. One of the ways we were able to do that is with the donation from the Generals baseball team, $1,500 they gave us this year. I used that money to buy equipment that's going to go in this future car. And also with the bringing on the canine car into the fleet, we took equipment out of that car that couldn't be used in there. And we are able to reuse that equipment in this car. So saving about $5,000, even though we're spending a lot of money. So my request to you is to move forward and order the squad car through Griffin Ford, who is the lowest bidder for the amount of $43,302. But to do the entire project in 2024 and not to exceed our capital improvement budget of $65,500 for the entire project, which also includes our cage and siren and lights and all the emergency equipment that goes in it. And I can answer any questions if you have any.
You handled the curveball well.
Well, I think we got a good, usually doesn't end well, right? Usually get bad news with bad news, and we got some good news, so.
I'm glad to see we got a local dealer that's gonna get the business this year instead of going out to state contract.
And we haven't been able to do that every single year, but we've done it a number of years over the past, and I would much rather have a Griffin decal on the back of our car when possible.
It's been several months since I've been at the department, always as a guest. But is there enough like indoor parking? Like you have the garage inside?
We are at capacity with this new car. We're snug now. We have filled it up. We have outside parking, and so we sometimes have to jockey cars around a little bit. But currently, right now, every vehicle is parked inside, and there is a space for it. We'll see how things will change in the future. You've been in our garage, you know that our emergency generator is inside. And in the future, when that gets replaced, I think we'll be able to clear some space because I believe the new standard is to put that outside. So we might accidentally gain some space without having to do too much. So.
I move to approve the purchase of one squad car from Griffin Ford for $43,302 and the purchase of associated equipment from 1033 Vehicle Services for $17,542.55.
Second.
Any further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Item D, review and possible action relating to the purchase of a rear load minivan for the city's shared ride taxi program. Ms. Hausman.
Thank you. So as part of our taxi program and the approved contract with Running Inc., the city's contracted service provider, the council approved that contract at our last meeting. The city is responsible for purchasing handicap accessible minivans used in the program. We retain ownership of them and then they're leased to Running Inc., doing business as Brown Cab to be used for the program. So the city is obligated to purchase a taxi. We did receive a grant from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation in 2023. The total cost of the vehicle is $72,373. The amount of the grant is $57,809.60. So the city's share of the vehicle is $14,566.40. We did budget $13,000 in the 2023 capital improvements budget, with the source of that revenue being ARPA funds for a new vehicle. And there's also $20,000 in the 2024 budget to cover taxi related expenses. Again, ARPA is the source of that revenue, the ARPA funds that is in both the CIP portion of the budget as well as the ARPA section of the budget. So the staff does recommend that the council authorize the city manager to order a new rear load minivan at a cost not to exceed $72,373 from the Transportation Equipment Sales Corporation. And then noting that $57,809.60 will be reimbursed through that DOT grant, with the remaining $14,566.40 to be funded through the taxi fund with those ARPA funds, as mentioned before. I will also note that there is a state contract for this, and the state uses this specific vendor for this purchase. So we are not able to bid this out to other entities to get this piece of equipment. This is more tightly regulated by because there are so many federal and state funds used for this. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are all of the vans that they use rear load or just a handful or?
I do not know if they are all rear load. I assume that the 2020 Dodge Caravan is, but then there's five 2011 Dodge Caravans. I'm not sure what those look like. Those 2011s will be phased out as the council approved a contract with only 8,000 hours for 2024. So there's no need for, 7 taxis to provide 8,000 hours of service. So they'll phase out those older Dodge Caravans and then end up using the 2020 and the 2024 Caravan.
And they're accessible for wheelchairs is the idea, yes?
Correct.
I know that my mother utilized one of those a couple of years ago. It was very nice.
This van would become property of Running Inc. or this?
The city retains ownership
Okay.
and leases, but it's part of the contract.
Okay.
with them.
Would they be retiring any other vehicle like available for sale?
I am actually not sure what happens to those, but I will definitely look into that.
Okay. I move to approve the purchase of a new rear load minivan for the city's shared ride taxi program for $72,373 from Transportation Equipment Sales Corp. with reimbursement of $57,809.60 from a Wisconsin DOT grant.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, review and possible action relating to appointing of election inspectors for a 2-year cycle. Ms. Eber.
Thank you. My mouse or my mic does not like me tonight. I apologize for all the feedback. Thank you. Election inspectors, also known as poll workers or chief inspectors, they are appointed on a 2-year cycle by the governing body. The training that's taken place at least 2 hours every year. I do perform that training. We held training end of October, so we had a great turnout for the training. I also provide training before every election when we perform the public test of the equipment. And then also the day of the election, there's more training going on as far as reminding the inspectors of the duties throughout the day. And then when situations arise, we take that as training opportunity also. As you saw in the memo, there are unaffiliated election inspectors, and then there are some inspectors that are nominated from political parties. Those nomination lists are provided to me by November 30th of the odd years, just in time to be appointed by the council. Those that are affiliated with party also do have to be trained. They have to attend the training. We do offer them schedules. If they're not able to work, that's okay. If they do work, there's some restrictions as far as some of the documentation they sign. Should I have someone that's affiliated with a party sign the documentation, I need to have someone that is unaffiliated or with an opposite party sign the documentation. I will say that a lot of ours that are unaffiliated came to us by ways of being nominated for prior parties. So it is kind of exciting to have some inspectors come out through the parties and they end up really enjoying the service and they continue on. Once that 2-year term is over, they can be reappointed as unaffiliated. From the time of the memo creation and the packet distribution, we did have 2 more inspectors come forward that would like to serve. So we may have this item on the next December agenda with a few more inspectors to approve. They're not able to work as an official election inspector without being approved by the council. However, I can have inspectors work the day of the election with limited duties if they were not approved by the council. So this is just those that are authorized, confirmed with the training, and able to sign any documentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, we'd look for a motion to approve the inspectors.
Looks like a pretty full roster, or we've got ample amount of people to cover.
We do actually. When I first started with Fort Atkinson, we had 2 shifts that were offered. We had pretty much an AM and a PM. With the bringing in of the Badger Bucks in 2019, we're able to offer actually 3 shifts. So anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And we find that some people really like that. Some people prefer shifts that they drop the kids off and come in at 8 o'clock and they leave just in time to pick them up for school. So we are very flexible. We're very accommodating. I'm happy when we have anyone that wants to come in and work. We have a couple individuals that like to come in the evening just to help close up and make sure everything is kind of buttoned up. And it's nice to have a fresh set of eyes come in the evening after my deputy and I have been there since all hours of the morning.
I know it's a big undertaking and I want to just mention that you do a job well done and we should all appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
I'd move to approve the appointment of election inspectors for a 2-year cycle.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, miscellaneous. Tonight we have none. Item 12, claims, appropriations, and contract payments. Review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Jacob,
Aye.
Councilman Lesko.
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.